Viewers, tonight on India Upfront, you will listen very, very carefully to me. Just like last night, we will dive deep into the unseen Kashmir files. The movie has brought out the horror in stark reality. But times now will unmask the enablers of one of the goriest genocides on Indian soil. Last night you heard how Rajiv Gandhi put his friendship with Farooq Abdullah, the then chief minister, over the security and lives of Hindus in the valley. Today, viewers, in these documents, we will bring to you unrefutable proof of how the system collaborated, conspired to deny Kashmiri Hindus a shot at justice. Not just a shot at justice, but viewers, a shot at victimhood, a shot at dignity, a shot at the truth. A day after the disclosures about Rajiv Farooq Axis, the Prime Minister today referred to the cover-up by the ecosystem of the truth about the pogrom that left lakhs of Kashmiri Hindus dead and survivors scarred for life. Before I bring you the truth that is contained in these documents, listen to the Prime Minister, who is also shocked at the extent to which the system of a particular era went, viewers, to deny the reality of a mass murder committed by xenophobes, Islamist supremacists against one community. First, listen to the Prime Minister.
इन दिनों आपने देखा होगा कश्मीर फाइल फिल्म की चर्चा चल रही है और जो लोग हमेशा फ्रीडम ऑफ एक्सप्रेशन के झंडे लेकर के घूमते हैं वो पूरी जमात बौखला गई है पिछले 5-6 दिन से और ये फिल्म का तथ्यों के आधार पर, आर्ट के आधार पर उसकी विवेचना करने के बजाय उसको डिस्क्रेडिट करने के लिए बड़ा मुहिम चला है। आपने देखा होगा एक पूरी इकोसिस्टम, कोई सत्य उजागर करने का साहस करे, उसको जो सत्य लगा उसने प्रस्तुत करने की कोशिश की, लेकिन उस सत्य को न समझने की तैयारी, न स्वीकारने की तैयारी है, न ही दुनिया इसको देखे इसके लिए उनकी मंजूरी है। जिस प्रकार का षड्यंत्र पिछले 5-6 दिन से चल रहा है, मेरा विषय कोई फिल्म नहीं है, मेरा विषय है कि जो सत्य है उसको सही स्वरूप में देश के सामने लाना देश की भलाई के लिए होता है।
Viewers, the Prime Minister refers to an ecosystem that virtually covered up the Hindu Holocaust. Yes, there is no other way of saying this, viewers. We will bring to you disclosures in black and white that prove that there was a systemic and sinister whitewash of the genocide truth. Now, on this channel, on this show, India Upfront, viewers, I always deal in hard facts so that you come closer to the truth. And there is a need, viewers, to come closer to the truth. For 32 years, it has been obscured by a film of lies, deceit. But these hard facts will establish the criminal nature of the cover-up. The PV Narasimha Rao government, Congress government, viewers, tells the NHRC one thing about what happened in Kashmir, and the ICJ quite another. It's like Jekyll and Hyde speaking. How do we know all this? We know all this because we have the documents. The government affidavit before the NHRC and its own affidavit before the ICJ. It's the Congress government. The Congress government said, and I want viewers, Nizam Bhai will put out the pogrom whitewash number 1. It's on your screens. The centers 1995 affidavit to NHRC claimed Hindus left of their own accord in 1990. Own accord, viewers. Let me read out exactly. The complainants are appropriately styled as migrants. They weren't even calling them victims. The complainants are appropriately styled as migrants as they have migrated on their own from areas in the valley on their own. As if, viewers, leaving your own home in droves is something some fairy godmother came and told them. Can you believe it? I'll read out again. The complainants are appropriately styled as migrants as they have migrated on their own from areas in the valley to Jammu areas of the same state or other areas of the country. कोई अपना घर छोड़ के चला जाता है? Does anyone leave their own home, their hearth? And in mass numbers. It goes on to say, their claim to designate them as internally displaced persons is not acceptable to the government of India on the grounds that the displacement has been self-imposed. You see, viewers, Ram Chandra ji went into self-imposed exile. The Kashmiri Hindus were driven out of their homes. Their homes were turned into their own mass graves, viewers, into pyres because they were satellite. They were murdered on the streets by gangs of Islamist terrorists. They didn't leave of their own accord. But this is what the Congress government said. And you know who told us this? It is Ajay Churungu, chairman of Panun Kashmir, and Sushil Pandit, an activist who has been here last night also, and he will be here with us tonight. I want to first begin with Mr. Ajay Churungu, the chairman of Panun Kashmir. Now, Mr. Churungu, you have written to the NHRC when the Narasimha Rao government had put out this work of fiction. Clearly they were appeasing. They were appeasing the Abdullahs, they were appeasing the Mufti, they were appeasing the Muslim sentiment in Kashmir. I understand that. But you were forced to do this, sir, because you weren't even getting the dignity of recognition in this country that you were the victims of a mass murder against a government that was denying you even the legitimacy of justice. Mr. Churungu, how did you feel? How did you feel? Tell our viewers.
See, it was a collaboration from inside. Collaboration in the destruction of the Kashmiri Hindus. The whole story was, we went to the NHRC, first to the Ranganath Mishra, who was the chairman, and subsequently to the Justice Venkatachalya, who was the chairman of the National Human Rights Commission. We told them, just change the definition. We are being called as migrants, and if we are migrants, then it will create a psychological environment in the government that they will treat it differently. But if you just change the migrant nomenclature and replace by internal displacement, at least that will be of some help to the government echelons to create proper policies. And we approached to them, they ignored, procrastinated, even NHRC procrastinated. Then once we pleaded in front of the Justice Venkatachalya, that their counselor at that time, who was from South, I do not remember his name at this time, but I have the name.
Mr.
So he also told the National Human Rights Commission, they are Justice Venkatachalya, he advised Justice Venkatachalya on the hearing that their plea is justified, and Justice Venkatachalya did not listen to it. Then we had the reports, we had the file, and we told him that this is what government had, what the quote you made it was on the file of the National Human Rights Commission, the response from the Government of India that it is a self-imposed displacement. But the perfidy gets more deeper once you listen to this quote. This was a submission of the Government of India to the International Commission of Jurists, reproduced by the International Commission of Jurists in their report. And in that, what Government of India, as per that report, had submitted to them, they said, it states Government of India submitting to International Commission of Jurists that the targeted killings of the members of Hindu minority community, which has led to the exodus of over 2,500 members of the community, resulting in the change in the very demographic profile of the area, and blatant religious cleansing. Government of India, it was the Congress government which recognized it at that time. It was a religious cleansing. And then we have the Government of India telling the National Human Rights Commission that it was a self-imposed displacement. So what was being done was that to the international audience, they were trying to tell them that this is what has happened in Kashmir. And internally, they were doing everything to fudge it, to cover it, insulate it.
I'm shocked, sir. I'm shocked.
And the whole thing caused.
I'm shocked and I sympathize. I'm shocked and I sympathize, Doctor. No one deserves this. This is the whitewashing of a horrible, dastardly crime. General Bakshi is also there. He was there at that time. And General Bakshi, the government at that time, said that the displacement has been self-imposed. That the Kashmiris should be called migrants. The Kashmiri Hindus should be called migrants. They should not be called internally displaced people because they left Kashmir of their own volition. This is the Congress government. Viewers, this was the mother of all cover-ups. And I want to bring you in, Sushil Panditji. I want to bring you in on this. You're a fellow co-traveler.
Yes, Rahul.
What goes through you tonight?
You know,
this truth has taken 32 years, viewers, 32 years to come out.
Yes.
Will someone do something about it?
And this is where what Supreme Court did in June 2017 now falls in place. When we pleaded with Justice J.S. Kehar, the then Chief Justice of India, who was sitting with Justice Chandrachud, this two-member bench in Supreme Court was deciding on our petition to at least open up and expedite the cases, the FIRs filed against these marauders, jihadis, who had blatantly murdered, raped, massacred Hindus in Kashmir. And we were tossed out of Supreme Court once he took a glance at the Attorney General Mukul Rohatgi, who, I don't know with what gesture, hinted, and we were not even heard. That petition was not even admitted. We went for a review petition a few months down the line with a different CGI, but the same judge appearing with him as a two-member bench, and it met the same fate. So if the system, irrespective of the government, irrespective of the Prime Minister, irrespective of the party leading the government, if the system connives, if there is unanimity, if there is a certain entrenched control of this, what you call ecosystem, what Prime Minister today hinted at, the ecosystem which permeates the bureaucracy, which permeates the media, which permeates the civil society platforms, which permeates every aspect of life in this country. If that system decides, ecosystem decides, then even the last door for justice that you knock is slammed shut on your face. And that's what we faced in 2017, twice over. This is the ecosystem we are talking about. And I mentioned another example where in 91, half a dozen senior and mid-ranking bureaucrats were sacked from their jobs because more than 2,500 of them petitioned United Nations with their names and signatures that India is illegal occupant of the state of Jammu and Kashmir and there should be a referendum held.
Yes.
And under the government of Chandrasekhar, then Prime Minister, a token step was taken to sack 6 of these ringleaders by 2008, all the 6 sacked government servants were reinstated with all the back wages.
Reinstated with all back wages?
Arrears, promotions, retirement benefits, without even a court direction. It was a suo motu decision by the then government to reinstate them. That is the level of stranglehold this ecosystem
Viewers,
has.
on India Upfront, the truth prevails night after night. There's a whole ecosystem that wants to trash India Upfront, trash this anchor, trash this channel. But you know what, viewers? The truth is in black and white, nightly basis. You can call out, you can abuse, you can deride, but you have no answers for the truth. And I want to tell you, Amit Malviya is here with us tonight. Amit Malviya, what I have in my hand will shock you. Government affidavit, PV Narasimha Rao affidavit that says the complainants are appropriately styled as migrants, as they have migrated on their own from areas in the valley to Jammu area of the same state or other areas of the country. Their claim to designate them as internally displaced persons is not acceptable to the government of India on the grounds that the displacement has been self-imposed. I cannot believe it. And it doesn't end there, viewers. We have really dug deep, and I have documents after documents to show you tonight. I will bring in General Bakshi, I will bring in J. Sai Deepak, because the Supreme Court, viewers, told this community that there was no way they could reopen. I will produce document after document that will force the Supreme Court to go back, that must force the government to go back and institute a commission. Now I'm going to show you, viewers, the next set of documents. The Pogrom Whitewash 2, 2001, the NHRC now speaking, viewers. It pulls up the Abdullah government, the state government. NHRC was assured that problems facing Kashmiri Pandits would be given priority attention. Regrettably, this has not been the case. This is an indictment from the NHRC, the National Human Rights Commission, the Abdullah government. And the Abdullahs and the Gandhis, of course, had a great friendship. And this happened under Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee's government, where the Abdullahs were stakeholders. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, Omar Abdullah was one of the youngest ministers, the corporate affairs ministers, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely. Also foreign affairs.
Omar Abdullah, who delights in tweeting trash against me. Sitting at the center, NHRC, pulling you up. Next. Doesn't end there, viewers. It doesn't end there. 2001, 2002, same set of people. This becomes even more specific. NHRC was assured that problems facing Kashmiri Pandits would be given priority attention. Regrettably, this has not been the case. NHRC regrets to observe that committee that was set up has not always functioned with the regularity expected of it or received cooperation that is required. They set up a committee to pull the wool over people's eyes, viewers, to look into this entire issue. And it never barely met. It never sat. Even if it did, it was seldom. So much so that the NHRC says, we regret to observe that committee has not always functioned with the regularity expected of it or received cooperation that is required. Here are the two documents. This is available, viewers, on the NHRC websites. Please take it out. Post it. Post it to the alleged Holocaust enablers. Post it to them. Inundate them. This is what is being referred to as a cover-up, as an ecosystem of conspirators. I want to bring in Sunanda Vashisht, J. Sai Deepak, General Bakshi. General Bakshi, you were first-hand witness to these events yourself. I want to ask you a simple question. Did the migrants as they are being designated by the Congress, leave of their own volition, or were they the victims, as they should have been referred to as one of the worst mass genocides in post-independence India? And that's why they left. You tell us, General Bakshi, you were there.
Rahul, I was serving as a General Staff Officer, Grade 1, in the Military Operations Directorate, dealing with internal security and J&K directly. Now let me make some stunning disclosures on your channel today. All right? Let me make some stunning disclosures. At that time, when this genocidal wave of murders, rapes, atrocities, killings, burning, knifing, when this started, you know, there was an atmosphere of panic. State administration, police, the others, even the intelligence agencies told us, we have lost Kashmir. Are you listening?
Yes.
We have lost Kashmir. Thank God for one man. You know who that man was? General V.K. Sharma, Chief of the Army Staff, who told the government, my army is there. The army is there. We will not let go of Kashmir. You know, but a whole lot of people in the then Congress government said, oh, we can't save the Pandits, let them get out. And now we must put wool over the eyes of the Indian people. You know, we don't want rioting in the rest of India. It's a secular country, you know. So what happens if a whole lot of 4-5 lakh people have to be driven out of their homes in the biggest ethnic cleansing, in the biggest genocide in recent 20th century history? It is worse than what happened in Yugoslavia. And Milovan, Slovak and the others were held up for war crimes. For war crimes. You know, that gentleman was taken over the coals. They were all the Yugoslav officials. Slobodan Milosevic was taken over the coals for war crimes. No less. Here the state government, the police administration, I'm sorry, even the intelligence agencies were in panic. Because the people who were helping them the most were the Kashmiri Pandits. They were doing their patriotic duty.
Well, let me tell you.
And what did they get for that? A slaughter, rapes, murders, massacres.
You're right.
And then the government looks the other way. They call them migrants. It is adding insult to injury.
Now, viewers,
I had to keep my silence, but when I retired, you know, I let it out. And just one more thing, you know, Rahul, if you permit me.
Yes, sir.
If you permit me, Rahul,
Yes, sir.
I'll give you one more disclosure. 2000 to 2002, I was posted in Kishtwar. Another wave of, you know, Hindu minority killings was started
Yes.
by the terrorists there.
Yes.
Right? Village of Pati Mahal, 5 Hindus killed, slaughtered in cold blood, mostly women and children.
Yeah.
You know, Tagood 8.
Yeah.
And then the next week, Gulabgarh 13 were massacred, and an exodus of Dogra started from Kishtwar. I knew I had just 3,000 troops to cover 11,000 square kilometers. I was told by my immediate boss, look, you're not here to, you know, intervene in these matters. It's the police job. I said, sir, if the police could do it, would the army be needed? It's my job to protect the people, and I will. He said, try it if you can. You know, so I said, sir, leave it to me now. I cannot put, you know, even if I had 11,000 square kilometers to guard. I had just 3,000 troops.
Yes.
Even if I had put 1 man per square kilometers, 2/3 of the area would have been Kali. So I said, I will not protect. I went hammer and tongs for the groups that had done these ghastly murders. You know, that had shot the women and children in cold blood. I'm
Yes.
happy to say that I was able to chase them down, hunt them down, and I used thermobaric weapons.
well, General.
right?
Well, General.
And once that message, you know, the charred bodies were seen, there was no further massacre. All the minority people who had fled came back to
When the state-
Kishtwar.
When the state, viewers,
Had that been done in 1990,
is in
none
willful
of these
denial.
brothers and sisters would have fled.
when the state is in willful denial, It is called something very serious. It is called abetment. And Jay Sai Deepak, I'll bring you into this in a few moments, please. Bear with us. This is a story that needs to be told. You see, the Kashmir files showed you the reality on a 35mm screen. But Times Now is exposing the cover-up. Because accountability is what is required. Even this late in the day. Now, there are 5 questions, viewers, that I'm going to prompt. The first one. Did the Congress government in 1996 lie to the NHRC about the circumstances around the exodus of Kashmiri Pandits? Why did the Congress government claim to the NHRC that the Kashmiri Pandits left the valley on their own? Why? Was the Congress government not lying to the NHRC when it said the opposite to the International Committee of Jurists, the ICJ, that the killing of Kashmiri Pandits was ethnic cleansing? So there they say it was ethnic cleansing. Here, before the body that counts, you say, and I have it right here, viewers, that they migrated on their own from areas in the valley to Jammu, area of the same state or other areas of the country. Their claim to designate them as internally displaced persons is not acceptable to the government of India on the grounds that the displacement has been self-imposed. Was the Congress indulging in brazen and callous appeasement by suppressing the truth before the NHRC? Who was the Congress trying to save here by denying the Holocaust? Who? Who was it trying to save? And my last question, not least, was the Congress seeking to protect the perpetrators of Kashmiri Hindus fearing action from the NHRC? That's the question. That's the question. Now let me open this up.
That answers your question, Rahul, because if they had treated this not as self-imposed, they would have been obliged to find out who drove us out and punish them. Since they didn't want to do that, their secularism was at stake, their fake, perverse secularism was at stake. They didn't want to identify those who committed this crime because they would have been obliged to punish them and reverse our genocide, which is what happened in Yugoslavia. The genocide was reversed, not in Kashmir.
Not in Kashmir. Let me bring in Sunanda Vashisht, Mr. Sai Deepak, and of course Sajjad Tariq and Irfan Hafiz Loan, and Mr. Amit Malviya. Now, I want to first bring you in, Sunanda Vashisht. How do you respond to this? What do you think was happening?
Rahul, I am an eyewitness. I am an eyewitness to whatever happened in Kashmir. I was in Kashmir along with my family till August of 1990. This happened in front of my eyes. I am an eyewitness. I saw January 19th. I saw March 1st. I saw my school bus was kidnapped. I have seen all these incidents in front of my eyes. And then the ecosystem that the Prime Minister talked about, let me tell you how factually, how I saw that ecosystem work in front of my eyes. When I was being as an eyewitness, when we moved to Delhi in when we just couldn't stay in Kashmir anymore, my mother had tried not to go in March 1st is when hordes of people had left by March 1st. We still stayed there because we had no source of income outside Kashmir. Finally, when we left in August, because we were really worried and scared for our lives, when we left with a shirt on our backs, when we left, years after that, let me explain this ecosystem because I saw it with my own eyes. Years later, I went to St. Stephen's College. I'm a student of St. Stephen's College. There, all I was seeing, I was a victim of this genocide. And what I was seeing is everywhere young students were talking about December 6th, Babri Masjid, which had by then happened. Then they were talking about things after that. So it was a politically charged atmosphere. In that atmosphere, when I used to try and speak about us, I used to be put down. I was never given an opportunity. This is the first time I'm revealing this on your show, Rahul. These are our scars. Where the students' society or everyone, they would invite people like Mani Shankar Iyer. They would invite people like Syed Naqvi, who would come and talk to people, talk to students, and what were they telling them? Mani Shankar Iyer, I remember Rahul, my ancestors died for that sacred thread, for Janeu, Bhat Mazar, that you people have been now knowing about that. Those were mounds of Janeu so you can imagine how Kashmiri Hindus are attached to that one sacred thread. Mani Shankar Iyer comes to my college and I'm sitting in the first thing and he says, because December 6th happened, I just throw my Janeu out. I do not want to accept it. I am not a Hindu. I do not accept this. And I'm sitting in front of him and I'm raising my arms and I'm saying, sir, there are people in this country who died for this, who were killed for wearing a Janeu. Do you not see this? And I was thrown out. Then there were people like Syed Naqvi who would come and say, India died on December 6th, and I would 1992, and I would tell them what happened to India on 19th January 1990, and I would be forced and said, no, that was not true. This has not happened. This is me. I'm an eyewitness. And they are telling me this. I was an 18-year-old kid then. I did not have the platform. I did not have the agency. But I have seen this ecosystem work in front of my eyes. I have seen how we were set on fire at the altar of secularism. Rahul, why do you think no probe was done? Why do you think no investigation was done? It was not because a small police wala at some police choki in Sopor said, I'm not going to file your FIR because he was scared of the terrorist gun. No. That was true at one level.
Yes.
But it could have been done at the bright level. The entire cover-up came from the highest offices. The entire cover-up, the entire thing about not registering any cases, not doing any FIR was going on in academia, it was going on in media.
Well, the NHRC,
in every circle.
you know, Sunanda ji, the NHRC pointed it out. A committee was set up. The committee was set up. The committee never met. Or as to quote exactly the NHRC, has not always functioned with the regularity expected of it or received cooperation that is required. State authorities weren't even cooperating. Amit Malviya, this is a travesty of gargantuan proportions. J. Sai Deepak also here. Amit Malviya, your first reaction to this big story, and I want to ask you that yes, there was a cover-up, but now there has to be a commission to inquire into this cover-up.
Well, Rahul, let me just share something. I have not been a victim of the genocide in Kashmir, but I've seen it all unfold in front of me. My father was posted in the army between 89 and 92 in the old airfield cantonment area. And I have seen the violence, the exodus, the big campaign that was run by these Islamists in January of 1990. The kind of pamphlets, the kind of insidious campaign that was unleashed on these hapless Kashmiri Hindus is to be felt if you knew people, if you had friends, and if you had people who you had interacted with in various spheres of life, you would know how devastating it was for them. The government of India and of course the Farooq Abdullah administration at that point in time had all the information. So much so that the Indian Army was not authorized to act in a manner that it could possibly have done and averted the situation that we are talking about almost 30 years later. These are all facts. I have had instances where our convoys were stopped on the ways and you would have written on roads saying Indian Army and Indian dogs go away. You can imagine if such things were being done with the armed forces, men who were equipped to take on these mercenaries, how terrible it must have been for the average Kashmiri Hindus who called Kashmir their homes, and they probably had never imagined that they would have to leave the place and go. What was known as Swarg or heaven on earth was converted into hell in a matter of few months. And then terrorism continued unabated for decades.
That I know.
It's quite surprising. It's quite surprising.
But the cover-up is now being exposed. The Prime Minister made references to it. Where do we go from here?
That's right. And Rahul, before we decide on where we go from here, what is really important to understand is the level of cover-up that has gone into this.
Well, I'm
when you have the
exposing
government
it.
of India put out a letter to the NHRC saying that they did so on their own will, you know how deep the rot is. Naturally, a lot of steps have been taken in this direction. Today, if Vivek Agnihotri has the courage to make a movie like Kashmir Files, is because there's an enabling government at the center.
That might be so.
Otherwise, a film
we
like
need
this
an
would
enabling
have
government.
never,
We need an enabling government now at the center, enabling government committed to justice, to disenable the abettors of genocide. That's the fundamental question. Jesai, Deepak, come in on this. This is an important point. What can be done? Can anything be done? Or is it time barred, as the Supreme Court's milords told us?
I genuinely don't know if I have anything of value to contribute, because listening to Sunanda ji, I don't think I can maintain my balance. And I think I would like to cede time to Sunanda ji to speak her heart out. And I'm sure she has a lot to say, because I would like to hear what she has been through, what the Pandit community has been through. And for once, I'll keep my wisecracks and speak to myself. I want Ms. Sunanda ji to proceed and make more points. If I have anything to contribute, I'll do it at the end of the debate.
Sunanda ji.
Thank you, Sai. That sort of made me emotional. I was talking about the cover-up. I have seen cover-up at every step of the way. It's not just, so I told you what happened to me what was happening in the educational institutions at that time. After that, when we were trying to write our stories, there was not one mainstream publication that was willing to publish us. Not one mainstream publication, Rahul. Nobody wanted to hear about us. The minute we wrote about genocide, to dur ki baat hai. The minute we wrote even the word ethnic cleansing, we were told to change it to exodus. We would never be published. So many edits were done. At that time, there was one newspaper that would publish us. It was Pioneer. The entire ecosystem was quiet. They did not want to pick it up. It was internet that saved us. If internet had not happened and people like me and thousands of other people, bloggers had not been out there and chronicling our story, you would not have been doing this program today. Vivek Agnihotri would not have made his film today, because you would have been told that some kind of wanderlust came upon us and we went in search of warmer climate. The entire Jagmohan story that is still not dying. Jagmohan's story has not died till this day, and that is why I have pleaded and begged to the government that please institute a special investigation team and produce a white paper in front of the parliament. Why is it that I'm invited by American US Congress to speak in front of the parliament? Why is my own parliament not listening to me? I want to go and make my deposition in my own parliament. I want to tell them what happened to me on 19th January. Record it for posterity. Put a white paper out there. Put it for this. I will die tomorrow. This whole panel will be out. What is going to happen 50 years from now? What is happening there? Cultural genocide. Names of places are being changed as we talk, Rahul. Anantnag becomes Islamabad. Shankaracharya becomes Kohimran. How? When my son and daughter tomorrow go to Kashmir, they will not even know that there was an Anantnag. They will not even know about our places. Our places are being changed. Think about this cultural genocide that is happening to us. Panun Kashmir has been at the forefront of this, and they have been talking about it since 1991. And it's only today that you've gotten these documents out. It took 32 years. Rahul, we were not heard not because we were silent. We were not heard because there was a cover-up of not hearing us. None of us were silent. The generation before me was not silent either. We were the internet generation. But think, even the generation before us, they got together. Panun Kashmir was made in 1991, right? It's then. And after that, look at the number of publications that have been published. Kashmir Samachar, Naad, Sushilji will give you the document of all that has been published.
Yes.
We have not been quiet. I want to refute this on your channel. Please tell your people, we have not been quiet. We have not been heard. That is important. It was from the cover-up at the highest places.
Very important, very important. Irfan Hafiz Loan, you're a counselor, you're a lawyer. First of all, should Yasin Malik, Bitta Karate be tried for genocide? Second, should the enablers be also booked for abetting genocide? 3, why didn't people like you ever hear your Kashmiri Hindu brothers and sisters? Irfan Hafiz Loan, you're a lawyer. Tell me what steps you took to secure them justice.
See, Mr. Rahul, first of all, we all are on same page that Kashmir witnessed, murder of humanity. There's no doubt about it. And same is recurring one, irrespective of caste, color, creed. We all are victims, our Kashmiri Pandits also. People who lost precious lives, we cannot lose sight of this gospel truth fact that the people who lost precious lives includes 99% by faith Muslims. And Rahul, I'm concluding, how you effort to be the mute spectator when recently Altaf's daughter, who was a minor, was begging, give me father's dead body for decent funeral, burial. That was the mother of all brazen human violations.
Sir,
Why
can you listen? Can you listen to me?
एक बेटी बाप की लाश मांगती और सरकार कहती है वो बाप अल्ताफ निर्दोष था।
इरफान लोन,
तब आपका ज़मीर कहाँ गया? अब सिलेक्टिव क्यों है?
इरफान लोन,
कनन पुष्पोरा, गाँव कदल,
Irfan Loan, no one is shouting on this panel. This is a malicious campaign.
Yes.
It's a malicious campaign, viewers. The people
because
who have been... One minute. This is a vicious campaign. Sai Deepak wants to come in. He wants to respond. Sai Deepak.
No, what about
let him speak. Let him speak. Let him speak. He's replying to you. He's replying to you. He's replying to you.
And as far as your question,
selective campaign. No, 1 minute. Listen.
They must be brought to justice.
Calm down.
For that we require a trial.
Mr. Loan,
can be condemned without being heard.
Mr. Loan,
Mr. Loan, presumed to be innocent till his guilt is proved.
Mr. Loan,
beyond reasonable doubt.
Bitta Karate has confessed to his crimes.
Okay.
But you have no problem with that.
1 minute.
Oh yes, there is no law. 1 minute.
Possible fake encounter and muscle fake encounter. Why not movie?
There are plenty of movies.
Who left no stone unturned to get the dead body of a father.
Okay, 1 second.
Only yellow belly people.
Mr. Loan, don't force me to please raise my voice. Calm down. No one else has shouted. They've been through worse. Sunanda Vashisht, 1 minute.
I lost my father.
1 minute. Listen to me. More, sir, reason for you to have fought alongside your Kashmiri Hindu brothers, gone to the state assembly and demanded justice for them for the same reason, because the same people were killing your father.
Kashmiri.
And 1 minute. 1 minute, sir. 1 minute. If anything, no, 1 minute. I'll tell you why. Let me come in. Mr. Loan, are you going to disrupt and silent for another 32 years the people who are talking, or will you allow them to speak?
Because you are factually
1 minute. No, there is no factual incorrectness, sir. Here it is. And that's very unfortunate. If you allow me to speak and allow for the facts to speak. Now 1 second. You see, viewers, the Hindus are in minority in very few states. And we are always told that minority rights, an extra attempt must be made to safeguard those minority rights.
You are using the word minority.
Allow me. You see, are you going to shout? Listen, I never, Mr. Loan, please. I talked about minorities, not migrants. Okay, I think you misheard. Okay, so first, please calm down. Otherwise, you're not going to even hear what I'm saying. And that is precisely what you want. You have not heard. Sunanda Vashisht. Sai Deepak wants to come in. Sai Deepak.
Assume for a moment that the logic that is presented by Mr. Loan is accepted. I just have one question to ask. How many Muslim families have completely left Kashmir and have become internally displaced citizens at par with the Hindus.
Let him finish.
I have to be allowed to finish my point, please. Second, every time there is a riot in any other part of the country, every state government, whether it's a minority or majority, or particularly if it happens to be a minority, makes an extra effort to ensure that nobody is permanently displaced, whether it's Gujarat or Maharashtra or any other place for that matter. What efforts have been taken by successive state governments of this particular state to ensure that Kashmiris are able to come back, or Kashmiri Pandits are able to come back? That is an answer. That's a question that they have to answer. Second, I'm sorry, this entire comparison is flawed. One particular community is pushed out by another community, and the remaining community chooses to pit itself against the Indian state and the Indian army.
Let him speak.
Kashmiri Muslims, they migrated.
Mr. Lone, I'll tell you who migrated. Mirwaiz Umar Farooq's family.
Asi Andrabi's son migrated
Exactly.
to Malaysia.
Let me tell you. I have more. Sayyid Ali
And
Shah
where have they migrated
Gilani's
to?
Son migrated
son,
Where have they migrated
to
to?
Pakistan.
to become a doctor.
Migrated to earn a living for himself.
United States, London, these are the places.
Some have gone to Australia. This is a fact. This is a fact.
About
The people who lit the the people who lit the pyres. 1 minute, sir.
Right now
Are you going to shout?
Listen.
You look. I can start shouting and have
You
a
have
much
a
louder
Kashmiri
voice than you,
Pandit
sir.
refugee camp.
Do not.
Why don't you ask the present dispensation? They are in power for more
1
than
second.
7
We will
years.
come to that. But
Why
I asked
they
you.
don't ensure
You see,
the
viewers.
return
Mr.
of
Lone,
all Kashmiri
Mr. Lone, I'll
brothers.
have to lower your fader. Please don't do this.
Carry on.
Don't do this.
Okay, sir, carry on.
You are now a counselor, okay? You swear allegiance to the Indian Constitution. So please. Now let me just tell you,
I don't
viewers.
think he appreciates that. He regrets that.
Yeah, let Jai Sai Deepak come in. Yes, Mr. Sai Deepak, go
I
ahead.
just have one question to ask. There were refugee camps for Kashmiri Pandits because they were forced to take up shelter in some place. What examples is he able to show to specifically point out that those people who opposed terrorism were also forced into refugee camps? The fact of the matter is this: the property of Kashmiri Hindus was completely occupied by their neighbors, and effectively the rest of the fight was only between the community members who were remaining in that particular state. As far as Kashmiri Hindus were concerned, they were a thorn in the flesh who had to be removed, and whatever is happening at this particular point of time is within a particular community. So therefore this comparison is completely flawed. If he wants
Let him
to
finish.
talk numbers,
Let him finish. Let him finish.
Full sense
Let him
of
finish.
responsibility. Maybe there
If he
are
really wants
Let
to
him
talk
finish.
numbers.
Let him finish.
That is the law.
Let him finish.
You go and take
Let
the
him
post
finish.
that
Okay,
law.
I'm counting till 3,
The
and we're going to lower your fader.
designation of the
1,
land
1,
and the
2,
distance.
3. Lower his fader. If he's not going to behave, if he's going to terrorize us here on this panel by shouting, we will lower his fader. It's not acceptable. Jai Sai Deepak, finish your point, please.
Just one point. I think if his entire point is to compare or trade bodies, the one thing that he completely misses is that Kashmiri Hindus were kicked out in the name of a particular religion because of that particular religion, because they wanted to establish Nizam-e-Mustafa. Therefore, you can't evade this particular point by simply saying we too have lost lives. The point is, you have not lost lives because you were Hindus. You lost lives because at the end of the day, you were seen as impediments by the terrorists. But as far as Hindus were concerned, they were kicked out for being Hindus. That is the central point that nobody wants to talk about. So this comparison on the basis of numbers completely misses the ethnic nature and the religious nature of this genocide that was committed. So let's be clear about this. Nobody was asking for a secular Republic of Kashmir. They were asking for Nizam-e-Mustafa. It has its own connotations which are religious in nature. This cannot be refuted. This is the fact that they're trying to obfuscate completely on the basis of numbers that have been lost. Please do not deny the fact that this may have been political, but that's secondary. This may have been economic, that may be secondary, but this was primarily religious. And that has been the case for several centuries.
Mr. Pandit, yes.
You know, just one statistic will put put entire debate in perspective. 99.9% of Kashmiri Hindus were driven out. 99.9% because they were Hindus. less than 1%, 0.5% maybe, less than 0.5% of Kashmiri Muslims, perhaps 0.1% of Kashmiri Muslim society lost its population to exodus, not because they were Muslims, only because they were seen as suspects, as mukhbirs, as impediment to jihad, as Jai Sai Deepak said, as inconvenient people amongst them. It was for this reason, not for their faith. Only if because they were serving as security officers, or they were counterinsurgents, or they were suspects as informers. Yes, Muhammad Ayub Pandit lost his life. Yes, Rifleman Aurangzeb lost his life. Not because he was a Muslim, because he was fighting back against jihad. We lost our lives, we were moved because purely because we refused to convert. We were Hindus. We were given an option to convert and live. We refused to convert and we were told to leave or lose our lives. That is the difference. And you simply pay. Countless Muslims migrated. 0.1% of total population migrated, and they too have come back. They have access to their homes. They have access to their businesses. They have access to their orchards. Our children have not seen Kashmir. 3 decades. And you dare compare the two? This is called monkey balancing. This is plain and simple resurrecting some fictitious, concocted tragedy, exaggerated tragedy in order to neutralize a monumental tragedy. And then you start this argument in the name of humanity. That is ironical.
This is, viewers, I can only tell you this. And I want to bring in Mr. Doctor, yes, Doctor, make your point, and General Bakshi. Dr. Chirungu, make your point, sir.
I have to just say 2 things. One thing is that the broader societal connivance in this jihad has to be recognized. Kashmiri Hindus were not killed by a few terrorists.
Yeah.
Their entire habitat was destroyed. Wherever the houses were in clusters, they were burnt. Wherever the houses were dispersed within the Muslim population, they were captured or dismantled.
Yeah.
Their temples were destroyed. They were desecrated. Even shit was carried up to right up to the dome of the temples to smear it, to ultimately write obscene slogans on the walls of the temples. So what's happening here? What was happening was not just a few terrorists coming and killing them. There's one more point I want to make. People try to think that genocide is related to the numbers. No, genocide is primarily a process of destroying a group, a cultural group, an ethnic group, a national group. And that is what was happening at all levels. What they are trying to say, just go and see the killings which happened of the civilians on the first year, 89, 90.
The point is, Doctor, the point is, what can we do today? Doctor, that's the point. General Bakshi, what can we do today?
Just one thing.
What should be done?
The
white paper and a commission. Is that what you're saying? General Bakshi.
The most important...
Yeah.
We are...
Chungru Saab, just a minute.
I will stop.
Just a minute.
Government of India should recognize genocide formally.
Okay.
And
formal
Government
recognition.
Of India should recognize genocide formally and enact a law. Enact a law. Government of India is bound to enact a law.
Okay. Well, prescriptions coming through. General Bakshi, yes.
Look, Rahul, every attempt was made to give it the shape of an identity conflict. The very simple, the slogan, Pakistan se rishta kya, la ilaha illallah, was used to wage an identity war which justified ethnic cleansing, which justified genocide.
Absolutely.
And look at the sense of entitlement with this gentleman, this lawyer has spoken on your channel. It is their right to slaughter. It is their right to drive away. It is their right to rape. For God's sake, we are living in a civilized world. What should be done? Send the pundits back and in secure camps, protected by the police, protected by retired armed personnel. Send them back to where they belong.
Well, let me tell
That's
you.
what needs to be done.
Let me tell you, viewers,
That's what
disclosures
needs to be
tonight.
done.
Disclosures tonight. You saw the reality captured on a 35mm screen. That was the movie Kashmir Files. Times Now exposing the cover-up. The pogrom whitewash one, Centre's 1995 affidavit to NHRC claimed Hindus left of their own accord in 1990. Pogrom whitewash 2, 2000-2001, NHRC pulls up the Abdullah Sarkar, the state government there. NHRC regrets to observe that committee has not always functioned with the regularity expected of it or received cooperation that is required. No question of wanting to give them justice. NHRC was assured that problems facing Kashmiri Pandits would be given priority attention. Regrettably, this has not been the case. And viewers, of course, Vijay Kumar Ganju, son of one of the first genocide victims, Justice Neelkant Ganju, who told us that Rajiv said the situation in Kashmir was not good. But what can we do after all? He's a friend, and he was referring to, of course, Mr. Abdullah. Now, viewers, there are questions galore, and we're going to build on this story as we go into prime time deeper. We're going to continue with this, and we're going to ask the right questions. Commission of inquiry is needed. We must have our own after that Nuremberg trials. We should have them in Srinagar, viewers. I'll leave it at that.